biggest challenge that self-driving is facing is called technology. Explosion of generative AI that we see right now, I've seen it at least twice. Will ChatGPT replace some jobs? Mm,
Welcome to siliconTale, a podcast where we explore more about tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and business. I'm Akash, and today we are joined by a visionary leader in the domain of machine learning and computer vision, Dr. Vladimir Iglovikov, co-creator of Albumenation.AI. Dr. Vladimir, it's a pleasure to have you over the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Would be happy to chat.
So, before we delve into the world of Albumenation.AI, let's take a moment to explore your journey. Like, I was researching about you, and then I came to know that you have been a decorated veteran airborne officer. You have been a very known name in terms of academia, and you have a PhD in theoretical physics. You also have served in Lyft as a staff machine learning engineer, and especially in the domain of self-driving car. Then, that being said, you are a very known name in the Kaggle community, and you have been a Kaggle grandmaster. So let's dive into your journey, like how it all started, uh, how you made a switch from being an army personnel to someone in academia, and then eventually being someone in the domain of AI and machine learning.
So sure, yeah, let's try to look to the past and me like give some analytics because in reality, it's a bunch of like accidents that lead to a journey that later on looks like a smooth story. So I was passionate all my life about, I wouldn't say about technology, I was more passionate about science. All my childhood, my mother was giving me books about science fiction, Robert Heinlein and Arthur Clarke and Asimov and things like this. And again, in my childhood, I got computer in probably 1992. And so right now everyone has computers, everyone has cell phones, but at the time it's only like few geeks and my father was a geek. So my friends were coming over for us to play computer games. First Civilization, then I remember like Mortal Kombat, things like this. At the time, I tried to get into software development even as a kid because, even at the age of 13, you're pretty capable. Elon Musk made his first computer game at the age of 12. Mark Zuckerberg started writing code at the age of 13. So, and like people in high schools right now, pretty talented. But due to the limited resources on how to study, and again, I give a few shots to C++, and when they had like pointers on pointers, and like from this code, you cannot reach something tangible. So I did a few attempts and then got back to computer games and was pretty heavy on them. Then I was studying math and physics. Math and physics was always relatively straightforward and easy and enjoyable to me. There's some like weird people, some kind of freaks. They see beauty in math, like real beauty, beauty, beauty. They may not see it in some art, but in math they see the symmetries and the topologies, and I'm one of them. That's why somewhere when I finished my high school around year 2001, all my classmates they went for become software developers because that's where you make money even at that time. And I just like, guys, okay, I'm going to study physics. Sure, there is no money and there is no hope, but at least they will teach me what's the modern state of how the world works. And that's how I got into physics department because math physics was relatively straightforward to me, and because I wanted to understand how the world works, and of course 99% science fiction background. Then I came to physics department and I started studying. And when I looked around, way that you think about this, maybe science fiction, some like movies or something, you see people who are exploring the space. They're nice and fit and brave, and at the same time heavily scientific. Think about like Iron Man type person, yeah. And then you look around yourself in physics department, and men that you see around, like ultra nerdy, very unfit, no, like with a few exceptions, and I had slight worry that I will follow this path, and I didn't want this type of the person. So I decided to take a break for a couple years. And in Russia, at a time you serve in the military for like 2 years, and I kind of like made a pause in my education. Went for 2 years to the military, participated in a war, Second Chechen War, got medal for bravery, came back, and continued my education. And again, person who I was at the age of 17 when I came to university and person at the age of like 20 that after these 2 years of military experience, they were two different people and I enjoyed second version more. But at the time, I decided, okay, good enough with this, what they call in machine learning regularization. Now let's focus on science. So I was studying in Russia. I wanted to do science, but you see, science is not maybe in United States. If you're well-respected professor, you're well paid. In Russia, there is no hope. You will be poor all your life. So I wanted to do science, but do science in a good way. So I got my master's, and then out of desperation, in a way, just what to do. Again, I went to the military out of desperation because I didn't want to be who I am. Then, after finishing my master's, out of desperation, I decided where should I go? United States, and they had this amazing programs where you can apply to graduate school to get your PhD out of your city without leaving. In very convenient. Hundreds and thousands of people from India every year go for PhD program from India to United States. Follow this path. Then I finished my PhD, and then again started looking around, and I realized that academia, even in the United States, sucks. It's a swamp. And yeah, I studied 1 hour away from Silicon Valley, and my friends were telling me about this like tech and this like startups, self-flying cars, and all this like fairy tales. And you watch this internet and these blogs, and just like, oh my god, I'm missing. So I got this FOMO, and again, out of desperation, because I didn't want to stay in academia, I moved to Silicon Valley to be a data scientist. But as many people who are switching gears from one direction to another, maybe many people in the audience know that you may be expert in one field, let's say physics, and then you're switching to another one, let's say software development or product management or entrepreneurship, and you need to start anything from scratch. And all your achievements, no one understands, no one values them. And I needed to get to data science. And I had no slightest clue what data science is. It was 2015. I googled data science, unclear, bunch of buzzwords, what to do. Then I started taking online classes, at least to get some understanding what this data science is, data science, like how it's related to reality, to real science. And in one of these online classes, they mentioned Kaggle as a platform to polish some of your machine learning skills. And I used it not because I wanted to be the first or to be. It was a gym for me. I go to the gym to lift weights. Kaggle is the best machine learning weightlifting gym. You go, you participate, you succeed, or it doesn't matter. More time you invest, better your machine learning skills becomes. Then naturally, again, out of desperation, in order to win machine learning competitions, computer vision, my friends and I, we needed some tools, some good tools, some convenient tools, some powerful tools that allow you to get a bit higher. And that's how Albumentations was born. It's direct analogous like Torch Vision and ImageLook and something from TensorFlow. They were just like not flexible enough, not fast enough, not good enough. Not because these teams who developed them they're bad. They just didn't put too much focus on this, I believe. So that's why we invented this library, and that's why it got this explosion in Kaggle, because we created this to win Kaggle competitions. That's why other people who wanted to win Kaggle competition started to use it. At the same time, it's not enough to make money. So I worked here, there. Then you got this trend of computer vision, deep learning AI. You do this at work. At the same time, when I applied for job, even with my regalia at Kaggle, being Kaggle master and having PhD in physics, no one wants to hire you. You're basically, people say, you're just basically useless for your data science job. But if you had papers, I just, okay, if you want papers, let's do it. And then my friends and I, we did this trick. You win Kaggle competition, then you take this material, write a paper, submit to a conference. And then because you win these competitions on a more or less regular basis, I got another 20 papers. So that's why you see a bunch of accidents, a bit of desperation on top, and you come from like living in Russia to, living in Silicon Valley, well paid, Albumentations, Kaggle Grandmaster, etc.
Nice. Your journey is like truly very amazing. Like, for example, being in different parts as of world, and then like it's kind of a domino effect leading one thing to other, and this cause and effect created something beautiful. So, like before we delve into a few other aspects, I really I'm very keen to know more about your time in Lyft. I heard that you been working there as a staff machine learning engineer, and especially you were being targeted towards the be part of self-driving cars.
Yes.
So can you like share more insights on like how was your time there?
So after graduation, I worked in a couple startups, not because I didn't want to work in Google and Facebook. I tried because they didn't accept me. They didn't look at my resume, or I failed this like one of the 10 interviews, so things like this, behavioral test, something else. So I worked in startups, learned like to some extent how the startup like life looks from the eyes of the employee. But then again, thanks to Kaggle achievements and some like talk that I gave in the meetup about another solution, some guy from Lyft, and Lyft, it's for people outside of the United States may not know, but it's pretty big company, direct competitor of Uber. And let's say in San Francisco, it was like 45% of the market of ride sharing is Lyft. The rest is Uber, and it's multi-billion company. So it's not like small startup. It's what is called in Silicon Valley big tech, similar to Adobe, Facebook, Google, Apple. For sure, it may be not as good, big as them, but in terms of processes and people that work, it's kind of similar. And this is whole another, I would not say league category with respect to the startups. Company and Lyft was making at a time 2 million rides a day, operates on a bit different scale than some small startups, requires different types of the people. They're burning different amount of money. When I joined, roughly same month, they raised $1.5 billion. So it's like these scales are flying around, and it was 2,000 people, like solid software engineers. At the same time, so it was new to me working in a big company, another scale, another processes, more price of mistake is much higher. So you need to interact with other teams looking for some like possible mistakes more. That's why it leads to 6 months agreement before implementing something which people may not like. At the same time, it was year 2017, and it was huge hype about self-driving, that either you're getting into self-driving or you're missing out, and it's $1 trillion business, and all car manufacturers, including Tesla, ride-sharing companies, even Apple and like Google and everyone else, they tried to jump the ship, and there was a lot of money invested into this. And Lyft, of course, joined the game. It was believed that full self-driving, like what is called level 5, like you've seen in movies, Fifth Element or something, you jump into the car and say, "Okay, drive me to Vegas." Take glass of champagne and it like does all the job. It was believed that it's not possible at the time, and it's not believed that it's not possible now. But some applications, some narrow applications like ride sharing, they looked possible, and Lyft couldn't miss this opportunity. It was even told us that it's question of our survival, because if Uber will have ride sharing fleet with self driving and Lyft does not, we will get out of business, things like this. So Lyft created this self-driving division, which may be similar to how Android works in Google or Instagram worked in Facebook. It's basically company within a company. So we had our own cloud, our own budget, our own hiring policies, and it was told, do whatever you want, burn money, move fast, but you need to develop, to give results, to develop the self-driving cars. And that's why, although Lyft was 2,000 people, self-driving division felt like a small startup, and we like went from whatever, like 1 to 5 people to 400 people in a few years when I left. So it was like this of the journey, and it was very interesting because self-driving, it's extremely interesting beast. If you, as a person who's studying in university and is looking to get a lot of experience solving amazing, extremely challenging, interesting, and impactful problem as a researcher, go to self-driving. You want to have interesting, exciting, and challenging and great problems as an engineer, as a person who is more interested in terms of building stable infrastructure, go to self-driving. It's horrible business because self-driving cars don't work yet, but as an employee working on this, and also due to these high limitations and constraints on what is required from employees building this tech, extremely talented people. So at the time, on average, people were more skilled, more intelligent, more ambitious, and this felt amazing. And this was like journey within Lyft, within self-driving. I was hired as an expert in computer vision, again thanks to my papers that I published at the time and these competitions. And it was my expertise. Deep learning, computer vision on cars or building maps, amazing time. Sadly, because self-driving doesn't work but takes a lot of money, when winter of self-driving started, Uber sold their self-driving, and Lyft sold our division to Toyota as well. And at that time, I left.
Okay. So talking about like self-driving a bit, so what do you think is the biggest challenge which currently the self-driving part is facing? Like, for example, we already have Tesla in place, but talking the same amount, like for example, in India, since considering the amount of traffic which we have and the infrastructure which we have, it's not something which is currently been built that well for the India as a market. But if you look at let's just say it's some other countries, it could be US, it could be somewhere in UK. These things can be like still be implemented. So what do you think like is one of the biggest challenge the currently the self-driving market has been facing?
When people talk about self-driving, they like to typically list challenges like regulations, not enough law describing how the self-driving should operate. Maybe road infrastructure, because self-driving may require some changes here or there. Lack of funding, but and these are all real problems, but they are not really important. They, with respect to the major problem that self-driving is facing, they are just negligible. It's like error bars. The biggest challenge that self-driving is facing is called technology. We are not able at the time to build reliable technology for self-driving cars. There are many issues there, way that we approach it, types of sensors, lack of data and models, and sure, but realistically, we just don't know how to operate properly. And fundamentally, the issue is, let's say you're building search engine, copy of Google. If it is accurate more than half percent of the times, kind of useful, maybe not like every link that your search gives you, you still can use it. You may not use first link, you go to second, it's okay. Or you come to Amazon or similar marketplaces and search for something, maybe results that it gives you not perfect, not ideal what you wanted, but you still can use it. And later with time you can iterate and this search becomes better and more relevant to you. Makes sense. Self-driving doesn't have this path. You cannot build something that is 60% accurate and send it to the rows, and these killing machines will drive around and kill people. It should be either perfect or no. And it prevents all the standard practices about let's iterate, let's improve it, because you cannot achieve perfection. Cars are becoming better. And right now, when I go in San Francisco, even if I'll go outside this building that I'm working in and wait for 10 minutes, it will be self-driving car from Waymo without a driver moving. So in this sense, this works. But even if it works in 99.9% of the cases, when you release thousands of cars to the road, you instantly get one accident. And for example, one of the believed leaders in the self-driving space, company called Cruise, that is owned by General Motors, about 6 months ago, they fired their founder and CEO after few accidents of their cars on the road. And it's believed that they were on the forefront and tested and things like this, but it's still just technology is not here. At the same time, when I talk to my ex-colleagues who worked in self-driving, they tend to move to self-driving, but in a simplified version. One person is building startup about self-driving boats. Why? Because if you have a boat and that have this sensor that measures the depth of the surface of the sea below you, and there is no passengers running around, there is no like other boats doing something, this like boat can drive and create map of this area. There are some people who are doing or trying to do self-driving for mining equipment, because if you have some career and some mining happening there is no traffic lights, no people running around. Task becomes significantly simplified, and many other kind of implementations of this. So it's not like self-driving technology is not working. Self-driving in the environment when people don't follow traffic rules, don't follow traffic lights, bad lighting and random stuff, this technology is not ready. But if you simplify it, it works and may bring money.
So rather than being let's just say a full-fledged self-driving vehicle, it could be some sort of a kind of a drive assistance, and some sort of a niche market. Let's just say you said about mining, where unmanned vehicles can be leveraged because there are no people in general, and like let's stakeholder to get impacted.
Exactly as you described. So
True.
people look for simplified solutions, simplified
Hmm.
tasks.
True. All right. Coming to Albumation. So very first thing is, why do we require augmentation?
Okay, let's think. You need to do some kind of machine learning task, and you need to predict based on the data some outcome. It may be probability that someone will default in a bank, or it's understanding who is depicted in this image, or any other task, or self-driving, understanding light of the traffic light. You have a model, and that's like whole huge choice of what models to use. There is another story how properly to train it, and it's a big research topic of how to train faster and something. But at the same time, you need data. This data should be representative. What you train your model on, you'd better have the same predictions, and it should be diverse. So that if, let's say, you take any machine learning model and let's say train it on one image, it will not understand any patterns. It will just memorize every pixel and good enough. If you give this image and its reflection and say it's, let's say, Vladimir, it will not be able to memorize, let's say, every pixel, but it may memorize that Vladimir means something blue. But if you, let's say, add to this grayscale image of Vladimir, it will not be able to say that Vladimir is something about blue. It needs to have some more complicated type of feature extraction, this type of the shape, this like colors, things like this. And that's how machine learning works. So if you want your models to remember patterns and this like deep abstract, create this abstract picture of the world, you need to fill it with diverse data. And there are two ways to do it. One way, expensive and reliable. You go and collect or buy new data. Makes sense. If you're talking about self-driving, the best way to do it, you just like drive around, collect more data, you label it, which is expensive, and then train a model again. One way. At the same time, you can do what is called data augmentation. Can be applied to images, to text, to anything else. It's where you synthetically increase size and diversity of your data set. In this example I just shown, let's say horizontal flip of this image, it's still me, or if we like have labeled person in a blue shirt with a guitar in the background, it's still this image, but for network it's whole another like set of pixel value that is feeding as raw numbers. And so Albumentations is a library that's working with images, bounding boxes, and key points. And it does exactly that. Starts with simple like flips and rotations, zoom in, zoom out, and goes to adding rain, adding snow, adding something else on top of the image to maybe not corrupt, but enhance it and expand distribution of the data, which makes models more robust in testing and in training. Data augmentation is a standard technique, and we didn't invent it. It's more about how diverse, flexible, useful, and fast the library is. And because when we talk about model trainings and GPUs are expensive, you don't want this to be a bottleneck, because if this is a bottleneck, you pay more for your GPUs, your training is slower, and this is a bad story. That's why you need fast and flexible image augmentation library if you're talking about images.
So regarding the same, like continuing on the same line of thoughts, I would love to know about the founding story of Albumenation.AI. What I heard is that you, along with your fellow like Kaggle grandmasters, you guys started with creating something for your own. And I heard you say plenty of time that you guys started this out of desperation, and then eventually this turned out to be this amazing product. So I'd love to know more about its founding story.
Sure, yeah. So it was, I believe, 2017, and I got money from my first Kaggle competition. And at the time, I had a pretty decent CPU in my desktop. And again, if you work on Kaggle competitions, typically by their own computer rather than using cloud, because when you're serious about this, and Kaggle is a professional sport in some sense, you need to train it 24/7. And it's just not feasible to do it in a cloud. Even if you have 100,000 of like credits on Amazon, they will disappear close to instantly. So I had my desktop, and I had one GPU and CPU, and life was great. Then you win this competition, and price I believe was 20,000, and team was two of us, and it was something about image segmentation. And I decided, okay, now when I got extra money, let me buy more GPUs. And I bought another three GPUs. So now I had four GPUs and same CPU. And everyone tells you that neural networks, their bottleneck is GPUs. You need more of them. And you're just like, that makes sense. That's good. And in a few months, I participated. I and a few other Kaggle masters, we participated in a competition. And this competition required a lot of data augmentation. I don't remember maybe like lack of the data, and we used pretty aggressive image augmentation pipelines. And then we realized, to like see that training is not going fast enough. That it's on the four GPUs going as fast as on two or maybe as on one. You start to debug, you start to profile, look in this, and GPU utilization is low, but your CPU is maxed out. For those who don't know, neural networks typically train in this fashion. You have CPUs and GPUs, they work in sync. So CPU is reading data from the disk, performs image augmentation or any other preparation, create a batch of these images, transfers this to GPUs, and starts working on the next batch. During this time, GPU is processing this first prepared batch. So they work in sync. One is preparing data, throwing to the second, and then like you repeat this procedure again. So and you want your GPU to be 100% utilized again, as we discussed for many reasons. And this means that you're reading from the disks, and preparation augmentation should be so fast that it's not just a bottleneck. But when we looked at these existing solutions at a time, and we had a lot of GPUs, like I had and some other friends, CPU was like just maxed out, nothing. And what do? You either buy a new computer and it requires some time and you don't want to spend money, or you look for faster solutions. So we checked out the code of these existing libraries and thought that they could be like extreme, like optimized a few times here, a few times there. And that's what kind of implemented. So we created this because we wanted GPUs to be maxed out. We created this because existing solutions existed, but they were not optimized. And we needed a tool that is powerful enough. And it was probably one of the reasons why this library became popular. I had like a number of libraries implemented for different use cases, and probably some of people who are listening to us, they worked on many open source libraries. They know that the fact that you create library doesn't make that people will start using it. So yeah, and because tool was good enough, it was good enough to help with competitions. And then when you write this winning, what like in Kaggle is called winner write-up, when you describe, okay, that's how I won this competition, that was very useful, this like tools, that's the tricks, this augmentations, we kind of mention, okay, we use this library that we created and that's how we used it. Here's an example. And right now, many people who are creating startups about ML tooling, they reach out to me and say, okay, we created this nice tool, like, would you like to check it? No, I don't, because I have plenty of like limitations, and that's what is cost of integration. Taking another tool and adding it to your pipeline, you don't want. But with Kaggle, it was different. When winner Kaggle master tells you that this is a great tool, to the people who are like 200 places below him, they instantly get motivation to try it out. In the sense, what is called in this marketing, working with influencers to help with your brand, to help with your product. We were developers and we were at the same time influencers, and that's helped the library to pick up. At the same time, it has extremely wide adoption in Kaggle. All computer vision competitions, like nearly all winners use it, so it's good. But it doesn't mean that in academia it is the case. For sure, paper about Albumentations has like more than 2,000 citations, but it's like drop in the field. So yeah, that's the story.
All right, that's very interesting. Like from being something of like it's almost that you had a need and then you created something so great that I believe right now it is almost 60,000 downloads from the library page every day.
It's like about 2.2 million per month. So divided by 30, like about 60, whatever, thousand downloads per day on average.
That's great. That's absolutely great. So another thing which I wanted to discuss more on is like considering how like Albumenation as a framework it came little prior, like and post that I believe a lot of other uh, tools like let's just say it could be fast AI and tensor they adopted this fancy augmentation. How did Albumenation actually exceeds, and like what are its perks over the any of the existing competition which we have?
So the question is, I understand why it's still popular and why it's still good. This is also a surprise to me. When we created this library, it was open source. We assumed that, and the code is not that complicated. Meaning, if any of our, I wouldn't say competitors, let's say partners, so people that are developing similar tools, if they wanted to speed up their libraries, you just open our code, see, learn, and that's what we did from other libraries. You learn, you do it, and that's it. But it, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Once in a few months, I'm performing benchmark about performance, and I did one a few days back, so you can just check out, and like there's some nice plots and tables, and to see what's faster, what is not. For sure, libraries are getting faster, but so far, my explanation, people didn't pay that much attention to this because I don't know why. Maybe because, okay, I can think about why. Because the issue with image augmentations, why people on Kaggle use it a lot, because they're experienced machine learning guys, and because they're extremely interested how to squeeze a bit more from your existing label data. It requires experts, and it requires setup where you cannot collect more data. In many other scenarios, you just collect more data, you label it, and it may work. Also, so far, there is no framework or guidance or bullet list that says you follow this bullet list, you use these augmentations, you try the steps, and that's you get like this amount of like model performance on your test set or something else. It just doesn't happen. So right now it's not an engineering, it's not a craft. It is still art or maybe science. And this makes it unscalable. Meaning it's in this narrow niche of machine learning experts is popular, but for people who are trying to use machine learning and don't have such a deep expertise, they cannot leverage it fully. Maybe that's the limitation of the library.
All right. So, like, I believe in the development of this framework, community has played one of the major role. Like over the time, it started building up, and out of a snowball effect, it actually created something very great. So, what's your view on the community forum that actually supported Albumenation? And I've seen like it is a huge community, and a huge set of tech enthusiasts like who are big fan of this.
Good question. So the big difference between if you talk about open source or between developing product that is like some normal product close, they have their own both pros and cons. When you talk about open source, you can attract people who will bring value to your product, meaning to your open source library, for free. So some people spend their free time to contribute to the library, to this code base. And there are like multiple reasons for doing this. Um, First of all, it should be easy. If I would like to contribute to some library and I need to like spend a week trying to figure out what is related to what, for example, like many people use YOLO package, I'm not a big fan of the architecture because change it works great and has amazing functionality, but if you want to change it a bit, it's ocean of pain. In this sense, Albumentations was, I don't know, by accident or due to its structure, because the talent of this guy, Alexander Buslaev, who was the original creator of this structure, it's easy to extend, it's easy to do something on top of it. That's why many people, especially at Kaggle, they don't use library as it is for its existing functionality. They use it as a platform to build something on top of it. So if you have something that's easy to build on top of, it's easy for people to contribute their vision, their ideas, their features, their requests, things like this. It makes like, so if people are working on open source, they need to pay attention how easy it is to extend their library. If it's easy to modify and extend, more people are willing to contribute. It should be also fun. So every person who's contributing, I'm doing shout out at LinkedIn, at Twitter, and if let's say any person will start from any part of the world to Albumentations and will start writing a good code, and then this person will ask me about referral to Google or Facebook or some other company, I would like happily do it with my words if needed, because it's not hard for me and person proved that he or she can write a good code. Also, again, because we didn't just like shut out about Albumentations is a great library, look at us at Twitter. We promoted this within a niche of people who are working on Kaggle. These people know how to write code. They're interested in writing code, and they are working, building on top of this library themselves, and they contributed their achievements and what they did, like for their tasks, back to the library. If you check it, we had like 140 different people during this time contributed, which is pretty big number. So their code is in the library. Yeah, but the biggest, it should be just fun. If I contribute somewhere and it's just hard, unclear what to do, requires too much time, not enjoyable, people will not do it, I will not do it. So if you're building community, it should be fun for this every person to participate in it and feel that you make valuable. Also, again, just imagine, I worked at Lyft, I was paid a lot, but my scope of how I impact the world was limited. Right now, in Albumentations, every bug that I create affect whatever, like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people all around the world in a bad way. But if I create new feature, it affect them in a good way. It just feels good. You make few lines of code change, again, any contributor participating in the library, and this person may feel that it's not his life worth something. You did something good, you did something material, and you can measure it. It's just amazing feeling.
True. All right. Talking about the impact, so I have been researching, and one thing which I found, like, application of augmentation is like literally everywhere. It could be from satellite imaging to medical imaging. So, what are your favorite applications of this library in general?
You're absolutely right. This library is used for all types of the tasks. A couple years back, I did some what's called customer interview, talk to whatever, like 60 people, and try to figure out what's the main need, main niche for which people use the library. I wasn't able to do it. Self-driving, beauty sphere, like removing pimples from the skin, like on the images, face detection, satellite, medical of all these different types. Basically, it's all over the place. Some people use it a bit more, some people a bit less, but it is realistically all over the place. Technically, as I think about it, you need augmentations, as we discussed, because there is a lack of labeled high quality diverse data for this particular task, right? And where does it happen? If I would like to collect some street imagery, I just go and collect it. It's not hard. But if I talk about in self-driving about situations where my car hits pedestrian and his blood's all over the window shield, happily and luckily, it's not that easy to create so much real data that kind of like depicts it. In this sense, for these situations, synthetic data generation may be useful. Another use case, of course, medical imaging, because if I take an image and if it's a dog or cat, I can do it. It's cheap to label, easy to collect. But if we talk about some rare diseases, some cancer in some types of the imagery, it's rare images. No one would like to share it with you. And to label it correctly, you need a few professional doctors, as they tend to have different. It's expensive. It's slow. So image augmentations has bigger impact and bigger value in situations where data is limited due to hard to collect or it's too expensive. So that's the biggest impact so far.
That's absolutely great to know the different fields where this can actually come handy. One thing I'm very keen to know is, like, what are the future features which we can expect from the this entire library?
This is a good question. Mm, Let's talk on a more general question. So right now, I developed this library, burning a lot of money. Let's say burning about $10,000 of my savings for living in San Francisco. And if you think how much money Albumentations bring, its total number of donations per month is $25. It's basically unsustainable. I work on Albumentations. I'm passionate about deep learning, computer vision, and technology, things like this. But at this moment of time, task that I'm facing in my life is how to build successful products. Product is something that brings money. Albumentations is an open source library. It's a framework. It's not a product right now, as it doesn't bring money. At the same time, These ideas, these tricks, that feelings that you get from growing the adoption of Albumentations, performing customer development, implementing feature prioritization, things like this, they have some parallels with this. What you do for like a real company, meaning bringing value. So in this sense, Albumentations is a good exercise. In a few months, I will start thinking and doing customer development and talking to people and trying to identify what features people would like to have in such a way that they're so good and people are so desperate. Again, desperation is a big theme in my life, and motivation, prioritization, that they will be willing to pay for this. What are these features? It's still an open question, because right now it's a great tool for cugglers or for developers. Developers hate paying money. In this sense, it's not the best money. At the same time, Albumentations is about lack of labeled data. Data is a pretty big thing for all companies, because it's like constant pain for people how to collect, how to label, how to version the data for all these machine learning tasks. This could be the proper direction. Basically, what I'm trying to say right now, I don't know answer to this question. In a few months, I will start talking to people, asking how do they use what they're missing and what they're willing to pay. And if some people in the audience use Albumentations in production as a part of the pipeline, and some things are missing, I would recommend them reach to me out directly. Let's have video chat, discuss, collective feedback. Many features could be added right now for free, and your company would benefit from it. So in this sense, answer, I don't know.
You actually answered one of the question which I had in my mind was how do you plan of like what are the ways in which Albumenation in general earns money, as well as like what are its future prospect in, like for example, increasing the money channels. So considering that, okay, so are you, now let's talk about elephant in the room.
Okay.
So let's just say taking past 2023, like though GPT was existing prior to that, but 2023 was a year when generative AI actually blew up. And this entire bubble of AI has been creating up, and you see generative AI literally everywhere, like over the LinkedIn, over the Instagram, or talk about any social media platform that you. What are your views on generative AI?
Okay, let's talk about this. This explosion of generative AI that we see right now, I've seen it at least twice. First, in 2015, when we talk about machine learning, traditional machine learning tabular data, all over the social media, all over the companies, blog posts, future machine learning beating human performance. And then in 2017-18, when we talk about computer vision deep learning, because before this hype about Gen AI, there was hype about computer vision deep learning. We're beating human performance. We can see, we can understand things like this. And each of the cycles, they start what I call this teenage sex phase. It's like, teenage sex. People talk a lot about it and brag about it, but when you ask, like, do you really like try to do it, or no, not yet, like, we're not ready, things like this. And this was exactly the same with machine learning. When in 2015 I tried to find job in machine learning, just like no deep learning tradition, it was extremely hard. Everyone is using at most logistic regression, and no one cared about ML. In a few years after these two startups, when I looked for job in computer vision all over the social networks, papers about beating human performance, ImageNet here, ImageNet there. I look for jobs. No one is using it in production, but people start thinking, considering about hiring a team to explore how it can be useful in their business. What I see in this Gen AI at the moment, and especially last year, similar phase. All social media, blog post, hacker news, Gen AI here, Gen AI there. You go on a date and some girl tells you about how she's like, impressed by like how ChatGPT writes poems. At the same time, you talk to people, how do you use it in your companies in production to build money? And there are use cases, but they're extremely limited. So I believe that for Gen AI, story would be similar as it was with these previous two waves. First few years, we need to figure out what it is, what are the limitations, financial, people limitations, hardware, applications, how to deal with hallucinations, etc., etc., etc. So right now, this phase, we as an industry, as a humanity, trying to figure out what's the value, how big it is, what's the hype, what is like real value, what could be deployed. Because again, example from images, you look at Twitter or somewhere, you see amazingly generated images. Are they like generated by Midjourney Stable Diffusion? Yes, they are. When you try to use similar prompt with the same model and ask for like 10 images, two of them are great. Eight, basically not what you want. Can you use it in production? No, you cannot. Can you post this great video image on Twitter? Yes, you can. Basically, it's a bit hard to talk about this. We can also look at this from different angle. There's a lot of debates about in ChatGPT when it talks, it gives impression that it's kind of real person, conscious, etc., etc. I don't think in these terms in a way that because I understand how it works under the hood. For me, it's a bunch of matrix multiplications that doesn't have consciousness. It's pretty advanced statistical mechanism, similar to how in these old phones they predicted the next word, and it was even in early 2000s, like Nokia, whatever, 3010 or something. ChatGPT is just advanced version of it. There is no really like deep reasoning. There is no logic predictions. People explore all different applications. People try to merge it with logical reasoning. People try to merge it with something else. So it's exciting time, but it's still in this explorative phase. And partially that's why when people talk to me, okay, but like ChatGPT, these LLMs, this field is like moving so fast. Why don't you jump on it and trying to catch up? My answer is this: it doesn't matter. If we are talking about business making money, it is about paying customers. It's about bringing value to the company in reproducible basis, month over month, year over year. And these like peaks in hype, they don't matter. I strongly believe that way we think about generative AI and how we use it in 5 years would be different. Not completely different, but different from now. How exactly, I don't know. If I knew, maybe I would build company in this direction.
True. Sure. Because like what I know about generate, like how it is actually expanding, and as I see, like for any of a technology, if we talk about, there exists a saturation point. Post that, most of the even ideas would become constantly the same. There could be a new field or new sector where this things can be implemented, but then again, most of the ideas, even those, would start becoming the same. Like for example, it could be a normal um, prompt assistance, like for example recording your meetings, or it could be helping you with the teaching assistance. So after some amount of time, what I personally believe is that there would be a kind of a saturation, and even the saturation of the idea. And as you said, taking an idea and making it a business are like two practically different things. Like for example, making anything money making, let's just say, for example, a normal issues with LLMs which we can currently see: hallucination.
Mhm.
LLMs may hallucinate. There is a whole domain of ethical AI which can come into an existence, and above all, the compute hours to run these massive LLMs is like huge. So those are actually kind of a quirks which LLM comes with, and definitely something, as you said, after 5 year, for sure we would be using LLM, but how, that is something which we should be seeing, like how it would be turning out. Now, coming to the same line of thoughts, one basic perception which people have is that, will AI ever take their job, or will Chat GPT replace me? What?
Will ChatGPT replace some jobs? Mm, let's think about it. Let's like just even forget about technology and look at whatever 15 years back and compare job market at a time and right now. Just what are the positions? You will see that positions can be called the same: marketing person, a product manager, or CEO, or whatever. Okay, maybe CEO is a better example. Let's talk about some, tech, like software development or hardware engineer or something like this. Most of these jobs, they're called exactly the same, but people are using completely different tools. If let's say we think about whatever like software engineers do right now, they worked in HTML and try to build a front end, like build websites, early JavaScripts. Right now, when they work on websites, it is like React, it's like whole another like frameworks, and it's another way of thinking. It's same jobs, but completely different tools. And if you take this person from 15 years back and ask him to just like, I mean, it looks like the same job title, for him it will be completely new story. It means that for many jobs, I don't know about truck drivers, not myself, but I'm assuming it's not evolving as fast. But for most of the jobs, there's a constant evolution in a way and tools that you do, in a way you collaborate. Again, pandemic is a good example. Before pandemic, we all worked in the offices, and right now, hybrid, remote, things like this. Same job, maybe similar tasks, but way of communicating, of collaborating, of hiring is completely different. What does it mean? It means that if you believe that you graduated from university and got a job and you will not change and task and you will not need to learn new skills, game over. It's not about ChatGPT, but we're in this era with this fierce competition on the global level that everyone is learning something new all the time to be more efficient, to be faster, to be better. It can be assistance, for example. Let's say maybe there will be some assistant that will take my speech and decrease my accent. I would use it. And it will open some doors. It will be slightly different and more efficient than it was before. So it's not about ChatGPT will replace your jobs. It's about some parts of your existing jobs. You will need to learn new tools, new assistants, new technologies, new something. And you cannot say, as let's say my parents or let's say in Soviet Union, you get out of university, you get a job assigned to you, and now you don't have like any way to advance in your career. You just like have a family and work till your death in this job. Not anymore. World is so fluid that during your life you need to change 10 different professions, and they may be called exactly the same, software engineer, but it will be 10 different requirements and tools and responsibilities for this software engineer. And ChatGPT is one of these tools that accelerates it. So right now, if you don't know how to use LLMs in your work and your competitors know how to do it, you will, yeah, you will be without a job.
Another question which I have is like, what are the ideas, or what are the, let's just say, what are the projects which you are personally very excited about to work on? Like, other than Albumenation.AI, like, what are the things which make you very appealed towards the world of technology? It could be crypto, it could be Web3.
Let's think about this. So, things that I'm generally excited about. Longevity, interesting problem because deep in my heart, I would like to live forever, eternal youth. So, out of desperation, again, good writing phrases. Space tech. Space is a new internet in many ways. It's developing very fast. Commercial space, it's like satellites, it's monitoring like space junk there, it's building some new space suits. Anything about space is like, big in my heart. Biology, or if you think about biotech, about genetics, about this direction, very deep in my heart, like very interesting. If you think about my physics background, there is a lot of improvements. For those who read biography of like Elon Musk, they did a lot of interesting physical improvements about batteries, about the alignments, about this type of a thing. Applications of machine learning to physics and physics to machine learning, theoretical, practical, like ways. It's very interesting areas. Again, I'm not talking about money, more on this general level, but like at least this are extremely exciting to me.
Nice. So, recently, if you have been following up related to this, so it was a kind of a generative AI based tool itself. You may know about Humane.ai. Have you seen that
Yeah.
as a product?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, those as a product, like it could be Humane.ai, it could be Rabbit. So, Rabbit R1, do you think like in upcoming time, your experience of in-hand devices would be actually be changed by the AI or machine learning in general? Like currently we can see the assistants in terms of like we have Google assistants, and then over the time Google released Gemini as well as Samsung AI, and then now we have Apple Intelligence. So what's your perspective on that, as well as like for example Humane.ai could, I personally believe like these kind of devices can be of great assistance as an accessibility tool for especially able.
Okay, let's think about it. There are a few angles here. Let's forget about, well, let's think about assistants, but like think about Amazon Alexa and Google Home and things like this. In theory, it looked great. You have something you talk to, and then like magic happens. In practice, it's horrible product It's like Yandex Alisa, Amazon Alexa, Google Home, because limitations of the interface. So let's say I want to buy socks. I go to like browser or like screen. I say Amazon socks. It gives me like 20 different like pairs, and instantly in one this like shot, I have like this 20 pairs with their colors, with their prices, with their like number of stars, and it's happening within like instant. Then imagine voice assistants, Amazon Alexa needs to communicate it to me the same information. Think about these 20 pairs. First is green, second is brown, like 5 stars here. It's just like not convenient. And that's why this like bet on, let's say, buy through Amazon, this Alexa and like enhance Amazon experience there just didn't work. Similar kind of logic could be in many ways applied to this assistant that we have. So let's say why Siri has some use, but it's not widely used. You don't hear people, okay, Siri, let's just discuss this topic about what are the news. You just don't hear this. First of all, because Siri sucks in terms of like understanding the speech, especially with accent. It doesn't have access to these things like this. Some things could be improved. But overall, even if Siri would understand the voice and even it has access to all this information in the phone, as I understand Apple is trying to do right now with OpenAI, it's still pushing the button, opening, typing something is much more convenient than trying to explain, to type in many things. So there's like some improvements there, but due to the limitation and amount of information that is transferred, it's bad. At the same time, imagine situation or company Elon Musk is working on. Imagine I would have like some neural chip in my head so that I would be able to communicate my thoughts into the phone or computer and from the phone instantly. So this image that I get from the screen about these 20 socks and their reviews and their prices, it would be communicated at this image or something similar to my head. So there is no this explanation voice, there is no this friction. So this could be this would definitely change everything. Yeah, but like assistance about AI here, AI there, still too much limitations about typing, about talking, about explaining. It may change here and there, but I don't think there will be some fundamental changes anytime soon.
Agree completely, because like if you look at the current age AI products which we have, in a way somehow let's just say if it could be a earpiece or something like that, a deprivation of a sense is happening. And once we how we interact with the things, we actually try to engage with either visual, audio, or like multiple senses. And with the current technology which we have in there, for sure exists a limitation in that sense. Now, something personal, like who is Dr. Vladimir outside the world of tech? Like I have seen your Instagram and all, just wanted to know more, like who is Dr. Vladimir outside the world of tech, like when you are not coding, when you are not participating.
Okay, let's talk about this. Yes, so for sure. So I have a diverse background, as we discussed in the beginning. Again, I would prefer to be maybe again read too many books about the royal families or Roman empires or things like this. When you need to have like to play, sports, to play musical instruments, to dance, and to do all this type of the things, to be considered an educated person. So in this sense, if you think like specialist versus generalist, I'm definitely generalist. Like if you can focus on everything, why should you focus on something? So it's one thing, and second, what is specific and special about Silicon Valley? It's not only center of innovation, where people and tech and Tesla and Apple and Nvidia and all these good companies, it's also located geographically in such a region with amazing nature and amazing like climate. It means what? So we compared and talked with my friends in New York. Every Friday after like hard week, people are going to the bars and drink and hang out in nightclubs because they're amazing in New York. In San Francisco, every Friday there is a huge line of cars for many hours going to mountains because everyone is into some kind of outdoor physical activities: rock climbing, mountaineering, like mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, ocean here, surfing, kite surfing, wind foiling, etc., etc. And I'm also a big fan of it. Maybe not all my friends are fan of it, but big chunk. So it's a whole community, all this old tech, Think about founders of Google, Sergey Brin and and Larry Page. During the day, they already had a company that was worth more than 100 billion. During the day, they were, leading people to conquer this market, like that market, losing, earning billion. And then at the end of the day, they were going and taking kite surfing classes to kite surf on this like Third Avenue beach near me. This and this is pretty routine. Nearly every like successful tech entrepreneur, Mark Zuckerberg spends decent amount of like time for the side activities. The same happening with me. So for me, again, you check my Instagram. Rock climbing is a big like part of my life, not just in the gym, but like mountains and climbing and walls. I play musical instruments, play guitar. You can see something in the background. I have guitar class after this podcast. I dance, not like nightclub, but more on the professional like level. Lift weights, of course. I mean, everyone lifts weights here. So bunch of these like things.
That's absolutely amazing. One question which I have, and it's kind of a last question which I wanted to ask. Like, to be honest, you are a person out of which I guess we can have multiple podcasts, and it's still there would be a lot of content and a lot of things to know from you and learn from you. So let's just say if you right now you need to start from scratch in terms of learning machine learning, learning data science in general, how would you be starting?
Okay, first of all, something changed a lot since the time when I started like, learning machine learning. Right now, amazing frameworks, amazing online classes, like people around me know machine learning because when I started, due to this situation that we discussed, that like people talk but no one really did this, there was no people around you to talk. When I was coming to the job, I couldn't learn from people around me because I was new. I was basically junior after graduation, but I was the most experienced person in machine learning in the company. It sucks to learn in this setup. Right now, situation is different. In many ways, it's different. At the same time, if we talk about data science, if we talk about machine learning, it is extremely applied discipline. Typically, people don't call it science; people call it alchemy. It's not even art. So you tweak here, you tweak there, something happens for sure, like structural explanation for this chunk of the job, but here we have no clue why it's going on. People who build ChatGPT, they have no clue why it's working like this. They know how to improve it better, but they don't know why. It's okay. And in order to live in this world where there is not enough structure that you can memorize and like work from the theoretical perspective, as you can do in physics, I'm a theoretical physicist, so love apply theory everywhere. The most important and most valuable thing that you can do in your journey toward data science machine learning to get hands-on experience as fast as possible. I'll give you example from Kaggle. Approach that people ask kind of how can I like start on Kaggle? And standard answer sounds like this. The first thing that you need to do, you need to appear at the leaderboard. How you do it, it doesn't matter. You copy paste someone's solution. You don't understand it, that's okay. You train something, at least it converges, your drivers are working, you have GPU and it's connected. You still don't understand what's going on, what's the network, what's the loss function, you don't know these like terms, but you get some result. Now you can focus on small piece and like learn something about this, improve on this. And then you train it, it gets a bit better, and you see feedback from the like universe, your model is better. Same could be applied, I would say, for any data science or machine learning task in university or as a class or something. Try to build something tangible, website for an app, something that uses API or model. Try to train that you can show to others. Trying to train models as soon as possible. And in the beginning, it doesn't mean what models you train. State of the art, like 10 years old, do something. Get your hands dirty and repeat this a lot because volume beats luck, volume beats focus, volume beats everything. Do a lot of dirty hands work. How they call it in Y Combinator, do things that don't scale.
That's great. So that actually concludes today's discussion, and a heartfelt thank you for you to coming on the show. And just for our listeners, like where they can find you and where they can learn more about this framework.
I mean, first of all, if you talk about Albumentations, you can go to Albumentations.AI and check out website. Is it the best website? No, it is not. Did we create it because we were paid? No, we were not. We created because it made our work and way to communicate it better. So if something is unclear there, ping me. I will expand. Your feedback will help you, will help me, will help the universe. If again, like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all the social network, I wouldn't say that I'm avid social network user that posts every moment about how I feel about the universe, but there's some information. Also, what helps, there's a lot of information based on my experience in my head, and just sitting and generating some content for like social networks could be challenging. But if you have question to me, like I'm like telling to like, in your audience, and if you just want me to have some like kind of long answers similar to I did right now, just ask me. I will post it publicly because it will help me to understand what people are missing, what topics would be interesting to discuss. Message me directly, look at social networks, check Albumentations.ai.
Sure. All right. Wonderful. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your valuable time, and it was great connecting with you.